Well, there certainly were impressive fireworks on the Mall, but I have to say I was surprised at the lack of fireworks in the president's speech tonight. First of all, it was far too long, 70 minutes exactly, and I thought at times it felt more like a State of the Union speech, like a campaign speech. The president went through all of his accomplishments during his first term, and they are a great number, and they are considerable. But I have to say, in his delivery, again, I thought the president, who we have seen really turn on a crowd, was surprisingly flat, and it didn't seem to have the bite that he usually does have in his speeches. I agree with you. He laid out an ambitious plan for a second term, 10 million jobs in 10 months, bringing medical supply chains back to the United States, dealing with pre-existing conditions, although we have to point out he hasn't done that in his first term. One other thing we have to note, and that is the event itself. The fact that there were 2,000 people in close quarters on the South Lawn there with seemingly very few of them with masks, no social distancing, ignoring all of the public health recommendations. I suspect that's going to get a lot of comment in the next few days.
And that's the response from Fox News. If you wanted an indication of just how well Trump's 70-minute long speech on the South Lawn of the White House went. 70 minutes of fear-mongering and outright lies and diffusing responsibility while taking credit for accomplishments that weren't his. 70 minutes of contradictory messages like how we can't elect Joe Biden or else the violence happening right now in Trump's America will continue to happen. Got it. He offered full-throated and shameless lies about Joe Biden. And despite those lies, no, Joe Biden isn't going to abolish the suburbs. He's not going to revoke the Second Amendment. He's not going to confiscate guns. He doesn't support infanticide. He never said that we'd tear down the border wall. He's never said he wants to defund the police. And he never promised to shut down charter schools. And while Trump hit Biden for voting for the Iraq War, what Trump doesn't mention is that he also vocally supported the Iraq War as it was happening. And Mike Pence voted for it too. As for Trump's own self-congratulatory claims, he said he built 300 miles of wall. The real number is 5 new miles of wall. He didn't pass Veterans' Choice. Obama did. He said the NYPD endorsed him, which they did not. He promised to champion pre-existing conditions, while his administration is currently in court right now suing to dismantle the ACA, which is the only law ensuring coverage for pre-existing conditions. Trump promised a vaccine before the end of the year, which scientists have said would not be the case. He said he's done more for African Americans than any other president since Lincoln, which would come as a surprise to Lyndon Johnson, who signed the Voting Rights Act into law, the undermining of which Trump has personally cheered on. He bragged about how the US's testing system is the best in the world. It is a system plagued with delays so long that many of the tests are already obsolete by the time the results come in. If he had something decent to run on, he wouldn't have to lie. And yet the fact that he does pretty much says it all. Chris Wallace even noted that his speech was flat, the reason for which is that Trump read off a teleprompter. The alternative being, if he didn't have a teleprompter, we'd be hearing about slippery ramps and windmills that give you cancer and kill birds. We'd hear about how new light bulbs explode and how sometimes you have to flush 10 to 15 times before the water goes down. So Trump's handlers probably figured that if they didn't want to hear the president brag about his big, beautiful A+ on a dementia test, then they should probably have him stick to a teleprompter, even if that means he had to squint his way through a speech that sounded like he was seeing it for the very first time. In other words, it was going to be a failure either way. Of course, it should be noted that the entire backdrop of this speech was illegal. The reason that we've never, in our country's entire history, had a political convention at the White House is because our tax dollars pay for it. Tax dollars that don't belong to Donald Trump's re-election campaign. The White House is not Donald Trump's house, and the National Mall is not his personal fireworks backdrop. Those are taxpayer-funded properties that belong to the people of this country. And during this convention, they were hijacked to give Trump some kind of home field advantage that is decidedly illegal. Here's a fun game. What do you think Sean Hannity would have said if Obama did this? But of course, the illegality doesn't matter to Republicans. The lies don't matter to Republicans. The taking credit for non-existent victories doesn't matter to Republicans, because none of this is about facts. It's all just capitulating to his Trumpian fever dream, wherein he creates whatever fictional reality he feels like, so long as it serves his re-election. But I would just say, lying isn't what you have to do when you're winning. While you're here, please subscribe to my podcast, No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen, where I take a deeper dive into the week's biggest stories and interview major players in the world of politics, like Kamala Harris, Adam Schiff, Katie Porter, Nancy Pelosi, Cory Booker, Eric Swalwell, and many more. Again, that's No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen, available anywhere you listen to podcasts.